Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and welcome back to Hoops HD. It is Thanksgiving. We're doing a little early morning podcast here because, none of us, we were all too drunk last night, I think, to actually
I
do our
got
Under the
locked
Radar
up.
show.
There's no cameras where I'm at. I got locked up.
But we did
I
we
need
did
bail
get
money.
we got an audio feed. We snuck a cell phone into his jail cell. So David Griggs is joining me. I'm Chad Sherwood. This is our Under the Radar show, where we are going to be going over all the under the radar conferences. That means not the major conferences. So not the
Yeah,
Power Four conferences. No Big Ten. No Big 12. No SEC. No
yeah.
ACC. No Big East. What else? What other leagues
I
will we
lost
do?
count of the number of top 25 matchups that there have been in the last 72 hours, but it doesn't matter. We're not talking about any of them tonight.
If you want to hear about UConn finishing dead last
Yeah,
at,
headlines.
at the Maui, not being able to even win one game at Maui when they've gone 12-0 in the last two NCAA tournaments, you're not going to hear that here.
Right.
Not a discussion. We talk
Yeah.
about we also don't talk about the A10, the West Coast, the Mountain West, or the American. We consider those we do those on our Hoops HD report as well.
Yeah. It
But
will be a
this
busy Hoops HD report Monday. I should be out of jail by then. Uh, but tonight or this morning, I guess. And it's important to reflect. It is Thanksgiving morning. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. And it is important to reflect on like what makes the day special. And what makes the day special is college basketball. Why the hell do you think the Pilgrims wanted to come here? They didn't have college basketball where they were coming from.
let's get right into it. I'd like to start with a feature conference, then we'll do the rest of them in alphabetical order. If I can pull up the screen share here, if it works on Thanksgiving Day. Oh, it does. I thought, Griggs, that we'd start the show today in Conference USA because it's been actually a really good last weekend season so far for multiple teams in this league.
Yeah, two in particular, three in
Three
particular.
in particular, I think.
Yeah, Louisiana off to the 7-0 start, and if you pull them up, it isn't just non-D1 opponents. They've played a couple of those, but I mean, the neutral win against Eastern Kentucky, Richmond, who is hard to play against, albeit beatable this year. They got Southern Illinois. A lot of those wins coming away from home. I know they're down in Tier 4 now, but the rankings are still really erratic. The official net isn't even out yet. I think that those are going to kind of rise up the team sheet as we go through. But then the other team you got on the right side there is how about Liberty? And is Liberty not just a good under the radar team, Chad? Are they a fringe bubble team? Can they get inside the bubble? The win versus Kansas State, they went to Charleston and won. If you follow under the radar, you know how hard it is to win at Charleston. That might be their only home loss of the year. I would imagine they're going to get a lot of credit for that. And they beat McNeese, another team that's probably going to end up with 25, 26 wins. That's a good profile.
It is. I mean, well, I guess one problem is, where does anything else of note come in the rest of the schedule? So they have to dominate this league.
Yeah,
If
they
you
do.
look what's ahead, they got two non-D1 games: Mississippi Valley, North Carolina A&T, and Texas Arlington to finish their non-conference schedule. Griggs, I mean, yes, they
Yeah.
did what they had to do non-conference. Only the overtime loss to FAU, beating
Yeah.
McNeese, winning that event there. Whatever event that, which event? I don't know. All these events kind of run into each
Yeah.
other in my mind at this
Uh,
point of the season.
it's okay that you don't remember because it's not on the team sheet, which means it's
It was
not
a
on the
paradise.
team.
It was the Paradise Jam, by the way.
Yeah, it was a Paradise Jam, but it doesn't matter. It was McNeese. That's what matters.
Uh, but not just these two teams, Griggs. Let's also talk about Kennesaw State with that win over a Rutgers team that just took Alabama to the wire last night out in Las Vegas. So and this team has a few chances ahead, including our good friend Rocco Miller on the call the game on the games on the ESPN Plus at the Western Slam this week with Irvine Towson and Kent State.
Yeah, Rocco is spending his Thanksgiving doing exactly what he wants to do. He's on television calling UC Irvine versus Kennesaw. I mean, I can't draw up a better day for him.
You're not joking. You're actually serious. I think that's exactly what he wants me doing. I'm a
We
little
were hoping
jealous. I
to
think
have him on
it's
the
great.
day, but yeah.
Yeah, I think he's either asleep or prepping out for us. If he
Yeah.
jumps on, he jumps on. We'll see what happens there.
Um,
Uh, Go
yeah,
ahead.
Kennesaw, but this is if they are going to make a run at the bubble and try to establish themselves, this event is hugely important. I know they have the win against Rutgers And I'm not trying to ignore that. I guess I'm still not completely sold on a Kennesaw team that basically started completely over with the roster overhaul. But yeah, I mean, UC Irvine, Townsend, Kent, then they go to Georgia State, who's pretty good. Santa Clara, really good. San Jose State, that's a wash. They don't have a chance in that one. So as long as they don't cheat. But
Yeah, I think they have a very good chance that San Jose State game. That's probably the most winner of all those three road games.
yeah,
But again, but there's going to be a lot of big conference games this season now
yeah,
with
no,
these three teams, assuming they're all there. And we kind of like both Middle Tennessee and UTEP heading to the season as well. So this could be a fascinating Conference USA season going
yeah, it
ahead.
really could be. And then Western Kentucky is again super talented and somewhat underperforming so far, but still dangerous.
Here's the upcoming schedule for this week. We mentioned Kennesaw's games coming up. Liberty, not much in terms of games. Quick look at Louisiana Tech, hosting something in a road trip to Memphis. They might be out of their league,
Yeah,
but you never know with Memphis. So I wouldn't
you
completely
don't.
write
You
that game
don't.
off.
A really good showing out in Maui for Memphis, but if La Tech goes there and gets that one, you're talking about okay, this you got to start thinking of them as a top 40 team.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump back to the rest of the leagues here. Start things off in the America East, where I don't know that there's too much we can circle. Vermont did pick up the win over Delaware and a huge win over Plattsburgh State last night.
Yeah.
Actually, though, that game was close at the half, so that's not a good sign for Vermont so far this year. I've been very disappointed the
No.
way this team's been playing.
Yeah, I kind of am too. I agree with the sentiment that once they get in the conference play, they're going to kick it into gear, but they haven't done anything to establish themselves out of conference, which means one of their conference wins better be that last win. UMass Lowell making a little bit of noise. I see that you highlighted them there, almost getting the upset win over a St. Louis team.
Almost getting an upset win. This was an amazing finish. I have
Yeah,
never seen a shot like this go in my life. He was turning around, falling down out of bounds from three
yeah,
at the buzzer to tie the game off the board. It goes in 2/10 of a second too late, though. We would have been going
yeah,
overtime. If
yeah,
you
and
haven't looked at Twitter to see it, go take a look.
yeah, I kind of was just following it on my phone, and I didn't realize it took me a second to realize that they had waved it off because I just didn't have a clear view of it. But what I mean, St. Louis perhaps a little disappointing so far this year. We'll get into that on Monday, but a really good showing there by Lowell. And I think that when you look at them in Vermont, just with the eye test, I think Lowell's looked every bit as good as Vermont has so far.
Uh, I, I, I think I agree with you. I think Lowell's looked better than Vermont has so far. Honestly, I think that this may be the team to beat in this conference this year from everything I've seen so far. But as we say, there's a lot of time to go. We haven't played a single conference game yet, and we're not going to be
Yeah,
playing any for a little while still. Uh, Lowell this week with a trip to Central Connecticut. It is a true road game against a team that is favored to win his conference and already has a big scalp on.
yeah,
Did they win at St. Joe's earlier,
yep, they
the
did.
Blue Devils?
Uh-huh.
So that could be an interesting game here coming up on Sunday.
Yeah.
As far as Vermont's games go, they're hosting Brown there, I guess, on Tuesday. That's the only other game that I'm really. Oh, Northeastern on
Yeah.
Saturday also.
Right.
Okay. But anyhow, Griggs, how about the Ace Sun Conference?
Yeah, and the former home of Kennesaw State, but
And we're not talking about. I was almost going to talk about. I was just going to start with the Ace Sun because I was thinking about Kennesaw, but
yeah,
that's a little backwards.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that made that mistake. No one, not to be disparaging. I mean, we see North Florida there with the really impressive strength of record, and they did have those wins early on. I want to say it was at Georgia Tech, and I'm already forgetting the other one, Georgia Tech.
We'll pull it up real quick here. That
Yeah,
it was this South
yeah,
Carolina one.
South Carolina. Okay. Again, no one in the league has done anything like to match that. They do have Edwardsville is a winnable road game for them, I think. Edwardsville, perhaps the best team so far out of the OVC. So that would be no small, like they go on the road and get that one, which I think they're good enough to do. I think that that will establish them again as perhaps the best overall team in the A-Sun. Um,
I'll tell you. I mean, not that I think that they can win these games, but they've got game at Nebraska and a game at Florida. You
yeah.
suddenly put if you get one of those two,
Oh, if you
you've put three name brands in your win column.
yeah,
Still a long way to go, and you already have one tier four loss. Although Asheville I think is going to be better than tier four at the end of the day. But
yeah.
but I don't know that there's bubble consideration, but I think that sends a message to the league at least that this team is the
It
team to beat
does,
in the
and that's a
conference.
hell of a year for a program that didn't have the highest expectations coming in. Eastern Kentucky continues to plug along. I think that they can be dangerous. Don't forget about Lipscomb. While they haven't shown out yet, I think those are two teams that can do very well once conference play starts.
Yeah, Lipscomb only one game this past week. They beat Jackson State. As far as
Yeah,
upcoming games, they are at Chattanooga. An interesting game on Tuesday. That's one of the more interesting games this week as
yeah, it
well.
kind of is. And then they
Uh,
got SEMO. It looks like next week.
Next week, and look at this game Saturday here. Austin Peay at East Tennessee State. Another team that we're keeping half
Yeah.
an eye on in this conference. This Austin Peay team.
Austin P. Yeah, got off to a really good start at that win at Butler, but is kind of rescinded since then.
Also, don't forget about Jacksonville here. Don't even know what they lost a game to Mercer. They split with Mercer and Siena this week, but they already have that win at Vodtech and a game at Georgia coming up in the next week here as well. So uh, the win at Vodtech, I didn't expect anything out of this Jacksonville team, but I'm also another team that I'm kind of looking at this year
Yeah,
as we go forward.
I expect nothing out of Vautech,
Mhm.
just but
Uh, how about the Big Sky Conference,
yeah.
where uh, well, I guess Griggs, Northern Colorado has been the story so far. I don't know what they did
They're
this.
the team that I'm
They only beat Prairie
continuing.
Prairie View and Northern New Mexico this week. Didn't do anything, to move the needle at all,
Yeah,
though.
they didn't. They're still the team that I'm banging the drum for, and I'm not writing anyone off, particularly not Montana or Montana State, or the teams that are typically pretty good. But Northern Colorado, I had said that I expected them to beat Colorado earlier in the year, which they almost did. And now I'm thinking that Colorado is better than we thought. So is Northern Colorado also better than we thought because they were really competitive in that game? They've only lost one other game. And Colorado might get some votes
At
this week.
Wazoo, that was at Washington
Yeah,
State.
at Wazoo. And, you know, they weren't particularly competitive against Wazoo, but they had Colorado beat. And when you start to look at the rest of their schedule, yeah, I think they are the best team. They're not going to win at Texas Tech. At least I'd be shocked if they did. But that game against North Dakota State that's coming up, a little bit of a summit. I think they can get that.
That is part of the Summit Big Sky Challenge series, in fact. So
Yeah,
I believe it is at least, or it might be the
yeah.
St.
They got a
Thomas game
couple
that
front
is
range games.
one of those two games is the Summit Big Sky Challenge game.
Yeah, but I like this Northern Colorado team, and
Mhm.
I hate to praise a team based on the two games that it lost, but I thought they were really impressive in both of them.
Uh, I, I give that to you here. As far as anybody else in this league, I mean, Sacramento State picked up a win yesterday at Air Force.
Yeah.
I don't, I know that's a Mountain West team, so it's a win against a conference that's not even on the road. It's not even in the under the radar show, but it's also Air Force, so I don't know that.
Yeah, who's not a very good front range team. I think Northern Colorado will also beat Air Force later on next week.
Yeah, I agree with you here. So I'm not certain that I'm ready to start singing Sacramento State's praises quite yet. We'll
Yeah,
see. They get Mercyhurst this week, and then they have a road trip to Denver for Sac
yeah.
State.
Mercyhurst transitioning up to D1. So
Yeah. Anyhow, over in the Big South, is that what we're up to? Yeah, I think we are. Yes, we
yeah,
are. Big South Conference, and how about a team that we can sing the praises of, and that's this High Point team, Griggs, who I
yes,
know they did not win their event. They had the loss to Missouri State. They did bounce back in I think it was the fifth place game or the third place
hmm
game. Won two
I
out of
think
three in their event, though.
yeah. And again, off to a really good start. The win at UAB, I think that's going to rise up the quadrants and get up to at least two, at least three, probably maybe even two, even though it was at home. But they've looked solid so far. They're about to be tested, I think, when the game at UNC Greensboro,
I
which is
thought you meant the Pfeiffer game.
not the Pfeiffer game.
Okay.
They shouldn't even be playing games like that. You've heard me limit that before, but coming up the next two, if they win both of those, you're looking at the 13 line, 12 line, somewhere around there because to win at Greensboro is they're not that Greensboro is typically good at home, and then North Texas, they get them at home. That's just a great under the radar game.
That really is. It's still December 6th, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that game next week, in fact, when we're
Yeah,
doing
we'll
the
be talking
previews. But
about it more next week. But the
but
other
but
team, what about? I know that it was put together against the Patriot card, but how about Longwood getting off to their best start in the league?
Longwood is out to a 6-2 start. They did lose the K-State and McNeese games and lost them
Yeah,
both by double digits. I mean, the UAB win is nice, but UAB has really underperformed so far this season.
they are.
I'm
Yeah,
just, I'm not ready there. And if you look at their next half dozen games, it's all a bunch of games that they should win. Maybe, let's see what happens December 29th at SMU if they can run through these games that they've got, including a home and home with NC Central. They play them twice for some reason here.
yeah. Again, it's better than playing an additional 91. But
Oh, they're playing enough for
one of the
those there.
stories at the top is,
Randolph, Regent, and Mary Baldwin. I mean, really,
yeah.
really Longwood, really. Uh, Anyhow, I guess we could take another look at the rest of the games coming up here this week in the conference. There they are on the screen. I think we mentioned most of the ones that are worth watching already. Anyhow, though, so.
Yeah. Radford goes to NC Central. They just won their event, so kind of a boost for them.
Mhm. Over in the Big West, here's another team that's out in that Western Slam that Rocco is out at, and off to a great start to the season. This UC Irvine team haven't played
Yes.
since last Friday when they won at Weber State, but they've got these three games coming up with Kennesaw, who we already discussed, Kent and Towson, who we both might be discussing in a little bit here. A great little under the radar event out there out in Canada.
Yeah. It's not bracketed, it's round robin. I actually kind of like that for the style of this because everybody's going to play everybody, and I think everybody could benefit from it. I do think, with all due respect to Towson and Kent and Kennesaw, that UC Irvine is the alpha team in this. They're good enough to win all three of those. And where does that land? Probably low tier two, upper tier three come March at the end. I really like this UC Irvine team. They go to Oregon State. When you start to think about running at the bubble, they're just going to have to nickel and dime it. They're going to have to bloat out their record. But
Road trip, but look, I mean, it's a 5 game road trip. Oregon State, Belmont, Duquesne, California Baptist, and then starting
yeah,
conference play with Cal Poly. Uh, all those are dangerous teams. California
they
Baptist just had a
are.
big win yesterday over Fresno. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, if they run through that, or even if they run through and win all but one of those, you got to start eventually looking at just how many games this team will have won away from home, and not just the number of wins, but the number of teams they will have beaten that typically play well at home. Belmont plays well at home. Oregon State could win a lot of home games. Duquesne was good last year. UC San Diego, and then when you get into the Big West, it's hard to win on the road in the Big West. And if they can go out there and do that, you hope the committee is taking that into account.
yeah. UC Santa Barbara also off to a solid start there. I put them on the right. Only the loss to UTEP so far. UTEP team
Hmm.
is slightly underperformed, but might get better as the season goes along. Maybe their problem is I don't really see much in terms of other chances left to
Yeah.
do any noise. Interestingly enough, it's by a quirk in the schedule here, I guess. UC Santa Barbara will be starting some conference play next week. UC Irvine will not get any. They'll get Cal State Bakersfield. They will get one conference game on December 5th. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
Other
the
teams getting
Midwest
two. Yeah.
adopted the format to where before Christmas break, they wanted a slate of conference games before the students went home, which I can kind of, yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
good if you
Yeah, a
want to
lot
do
of conferences have adopted that format. We're going to be getting into conference play in a lot of these leagues and a lot of the major conferences as well
Yeah.
within the next week or so here.
Mhm.
Once we get through these tournaments and the like. Here's the rest of the upcoming schedule. Another game to circle coming up here, Griggs. Tuesday night, Hawaii is at Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Hawaii has played well so far. They're a team that I thought might be able to make some noise this season. This is a huge road test for the
Uh,
Rainbow
i-
Warriors.
if they get that one, I'll be a believer. Other than that, I'll just attribute it to them being a home court hero. But yeah, they go out there and win that one.
And again, there it is on next week on Thursday. There's that start of that conference play.
Yeah.
Uh, conference action right around the corner here.
Mhm.
We already talked a little CUS. Oh, before we get there, alphabetically, we got to go hit the Coastal first. Um, Coastal Athletic Association, and I know you've been very impressed with what this Charleston team has done so far. Even though
I have been.
they did lose that Rhode Island game, they bounced back with the Northern Kentucky win, though.
They didn't just lose to Rhode Island. They lost in a way that you just wondered, did they like how much did they have to drink before they took the court? It was a real disappointing showing. Nothing against Rhodey, but I was expecting Charleston to compete and maybe even win that one. As impressed as I would have been, Chad, that was not an impressive showing.
That was not an impressive show. No, I'll agree with you there. I still like this Hofstra team. They've only played once in the last week, and they played Houston. So yes, they lost, they almost got doubled up by Houston. But uh, in terms of the level of this league of competition, I think Hofstra is going to be right there at the end of the day.
Hmm. Charleston had the benefit of playing some notable competition on their floor. They got to go out and win off of their floor too. So,
As far as upcoming games, Towson, another team out there in the Western Slam. Rocco gets to see teams. I think he's going to be watching every single team in D1
yeah.
this week. Charleston
Mhm.
has a huge game on Tuesday night.
Yes.
Uh,
Uh,
if anybody can even pronounce that, please tweet at us
it's
and let us
Tusculum,
know.
isn't it? Yeah.
Tusculum, is that it? I
Yeah.
have no idea. Um, big rivalry game coming up Tuesday. Also, the Delaware State Delaware game. That's actually a pretty nice little rivalry there. And
Yeah. That one is.
anyhow, let's go over to the Horizon League. Uh, where Griggs, I mean, the story, I guess, Morris Robert, what did they
Yeah,
get? One
Morris.
this was
There's Morris Robert. The good.
they got the
Uh,
win over Canisius this week for
yeah.
Morris Robert. And oh wait, is it Morris Robert or? Uh,
Well, that's what the jersey said.
yes, folks, take a look at this if you don't believe us. Not only the guy shooting the free throws, the guy off on the side of the screen there also. Both their jerseys apparently say the correct name of the school that we've been mispronouncing it for all these years. It is
Yeah.
Morris Robert. It is not Robert
Um,
Morris. And we
I did not see
apologize.
it.
Great revolutionary hero. Since the 1700s, everyone's been getting his name wrong.
Yeah. Morris Robert. Did they issue an administrative technical in this game, Chad, or did they go back and issue one for all of the previous games they played throughout their entire history for having them?
The Robert Morris on something. Well, the guy up there on the left, number 23, he's got Robert Morris, so he should have gotten teed up for the
Yeah.
wrong jersey. Yes. So, folks, in case you want to know, from now on, for the rest of the season at least, it is Morris Robert.
Yeah.
But actually, Milwaukee had a pretty nice week this week. Also, I thought though with their wins over Wofford, St. Thomas, and
Yeah.
Portland, and a close game against UCF last night.
Yeah, I mean, they really competed against what I think is a really good UCF team. I was expecting them to get blown off the floor, but they were right in there.
They were Fort Wayne. I thought was a little bit disappointing in their loss to Radford by double digits the other night.
Yeah,
That was
in
I
that
thought I expected a little. I thought they had better shot in that game, and I think we still got to give yet another shout out to Detroit Mercy. Uh, Already 3 wins on the season, even though they didn't pick up any this week.
They
This team.
didn't, but look, I mean, they were super competitive with a roadie team that blew Charleston off the floor, with a Wake team that's really good. Like Detroit Mercy they actually resemble a basketball team this year.
Yeah, we'll see how many wins they can get out of this, but
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised to see them finish in the middle of the pack of the Horizon
I wouldn't
suddenly
either.
this year.
Yeah,
Upcoming games this week, Morris is going to be at Ohio and
yeah,
and hosting Youngstown, but Milwaukee is a team that is at Southern Miss with a very interesting game here Saturday. I think that's a winnable game as well, and then hosting
yeah,
Cleveland State on Thursday.
yeah. And again, another conference getting into that, trying to get the students into the conference opener. This was an issue, especially with under the radar conferences. They were opening their conference schedule big opening night to no students in a half empty arena. So that's why you're seeing some of these games in December before going back out of conference.
Yeah. Also, I believe I'm not certain if the Horizon went to a full 20 game schedule or not this year as well. So you got to
I think
squeeze
it
in a few
did.
extra games as well. So
Yeah.
lots of reasons to do these games. And last thing you want to do is do them over Christmas break when
Nobody's there.
nobody's there. Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, Over in the Ivy League, the story remains this Columbia team with another perfect week with wins over New Hampshire and Stony Brook, albeit both at home. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what a story this Columbia team has been so far.
They are. And
SOR of 12. That means if we bracketed the tournament by SOR right now, they'd be a 3 seed.
which is kind of remarkable that win at Villanova, I guess, is what's moving them up because, like, if you look at their profile, like they haven't played the strongest schedule. I'm almost kind of confused as to why the SOR is what it is. I mean, they have won some road games.
I think the undefeated, and it is a resume-based metric. Look at even our J&Gs in the 30s here. It's a
Yeah.
resume-based metric early in the season. There's just not enough qualitative data to really make a resume-based metric like
Yeah.
the SOR that's solely based on resume, not even based on any preseason rankings at all. That I think Joby does factor in for his J&G formula. It's hard to make
Mhm.
those have any meaning until we get a
Yeah.
few more games under our belts.
Yeah, so it's still pretty scattershot. But what a start for Columbia, regardless of who they're beating. They did get the win against Villanova. I think this game against Albany that's coming up is a really tough challenge. They kind of step out, but are we setting up for a 13 and 0, 14 and 0 Columbia team going into Rutgers? And what a storyline that game's going to be.
It is, and I hope my Rutgers team is ready for this Columbia team. I think they will be if
Yeah,
this team is undefeated. I mean, if they win this game in Albany, they shouldn't have any problem with their non-D1 games, and I don't think Fairfield is going to be much trouble
right.
for them either. So it's all if they can win at Albany this week, they will be going to Rutgers undefeated, I believe,
Yeah, I
and
think so
that's the end of
too.
their non-conference schedule then. And
Mhm.
you look at the rest of the league here. Yale had a 1-1 week, beat that Fairfield team, which is disgusting, but then lost the game to Delaware. Princeton with a
Yeah.
resounding wins over Portland and Nazareth.
Nazareth. So is Princeton still like this? Princeton was a team that I thought at least would be a top 40 bubble-ish fringe team. Do they still have it in them to right the ship? That's a big one at St. Joe's. But
That's a good one for them at St. Joe's. And do they have the right? Yeah. Well, they haven't played a conference game yet. And quite
yeah,
frankly, in terms of running the ship, Griggs, all they got to do, everything it doesn't matter once you get to conference play because I don't even think that Columbia is going to. I mean, if Columbia goes undefeated and wins, including a win at Rutgers, maybe we could talk about them for the bubble. But I don't think Columbia is going to be a serious bubble contender here.
yeah.
I think it's a one-bit Ivy League at the end of the day, and so what do you got to do? You got to get into conference play, make sure you finish in the top four, and win two games in March.
Yep.
Uh,
Sounds good.
so yes, I think Plitz has more than enough time to right the ship here. Uh, they'll be playing Rutgers coming up in a few weeks here as well. By the way,
Yeah, that's a
Metro
Princeton.
Metro Atlantic Conference. I guess Marist has kind of been the story here at 4-1. They picked up only one win the last week. It was over New Hampshire, but we kind of like this team heading into the season, and they've
Yeah, we
proven that
do.
so far.
Yeah, I think so too. At least when compared to the rest of the conference, they've jumped out more than anybody. Quinnipiac was the sexy out of conference pick. It seems like that every year I pick Quinnipiac to do something, they fall off the mountain. And then every year where I come into the preseason sort of ignoring them, they sprint to the front. Just 2-4 against D1 teams. I still can't help but think that once they do get in the conference play, they're going to do really well. But so far, if you ask me, what's the team that looks the best and that's done the most, it's Marist.
Yeah, Quinnipiac's defense, all four were road losses. St. John's, St. Louis, Yale, and Lowell. And not none
Yeah.
of them horrible.
The game at Yale, that was opening night, and they didn't just lose. Maybe I've been soured on them ever since.
Yeah,
But
but what have they done? They won at Navy and they beat Maine at home. I mean, a decent Maine
yeah,
team, but it was a home win and beat
yeah,
whoever the heck WPI is, Worcester Polytechnic, I believe.
yeah.
The next, we've got some early conference games coming up, and we've got the game at Stonehill and the game at Central Connecticut coming up. So we'll see.
Mhm.
But I'm really looking at this Marist team at this point in the
Yeah,
season.
I
We'll
think
see
so
if that
too.
changes. As far as Marist this week, let me highlight their games. They have a trip to Lehigh on Saturday. That'll be their only game in the next
Yeah,
next week
they
here.
should win that one.
Uh, Mid American Conference, and
Yeah, it's the wagon wheel teams are doing pretty well. Ohio, still the team that I was big on coming into the year continues to sort of underperform, although they did beat Portland. What about Akron? Like,
I was gonna say
not Akron. I'm sorry, Kent. Oh my
I was gonna say
God,
what
I'm
about
stuck on
Kent
the
State
cat.
because Kent State won the game at Cleveland State. They won at Louisiana. Now Louisiana has been shorthanded all season, and
Yeah,
it's not it's going to end up not being the team we thought they would be preseason. The only loss was at Auburn, and Auburn beats everybody. And Auburn is probably the best team in the nation. So
I
here's
think they are. Wow, is Auburn good? We'll talk about them on Monday. But in Kent State was reasonably competitive. I know the final score was 23, but for about 25 minutes, they were competing. It was worth watching.
I gotta
Never,
say though, again, shout out to Rocco again because Kent State is the fourth team up there in this event up in Canada that he's on the call for, and
yeah,
Ed helped organize the event. And Kent
yeah.
State in there, and these next three games, getting UC Irvine tomorrow, getting Kennesaw State on Saturday. Uh, this is a chance for Kent. I think you said UC Irvine earlier. UC Irvine is the clear favorite. It would not shock me to see Kent State be the one team that goes 3-0 in this event, though.
It wouldn't shock me, and if they did, they'll certainly have my attention the way Irvine does now. But that is just a great game tomorrow. That Irvine Kent State game, especially if the chalk holds today and they both win today.
Yeah, Irvine has that big game with Kennesaw today. Kent has Towson coming up
Yeah.
tonight. As far as the rest of the league, I guess there's not much else that we really need to circle from this past week. But moving forward to coming up the next week here, we've mentioned a few of the games for Kent. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know, Northern Kentucky at Akron, or I don't.
Yeah,
There's a
Northern
couple
Kentucky
decent
having a
looking
rough
games.
year. Western
West,
Michigan going to Dayton. In case you missed it, Dayton is damn good.
and also, in case you missed it, go back to our preseason. If you're not from the state of Ohio and you're in the MAC, just forget about it this year. So
Yeah.
we're talking, Eastern Michigan. I get it; they're number two on that screen right now. We'll see where they end up on that screen as we move into
Yeah.
the further into the season here. Let's jump to what are we up to? The MEAC. Griggs, I know you got some big takes on this conference.
Oh, huge takes. Norfolk State, I think, is the best team. They've kind of shown it so far. They're the ones that have pieced together the biggest wins. And man, it's going to be an exciting race with a couple centenary candidates in there.
Yeah, Norfolk State actually did pick up a road win at UC Davis this past week, so that's
Yeah.
it's something you don't really see often from this conference. Not
Um,
as D1 road wins, especially when you got to travel cross country for them.
I would never poke fun at this if it were a non-D1, but even if you're a D1 as bad as UMES or Maryland Eastern Shore, they had a little trouble with Arkansas on Monday.
They did. They just did not look very good at that game. They also got blown up by Little Rock. I thought I should, actually, though, real shout out though to South Carolina State. They went to an event that Alabama A&M was hosting and beat both
Yeah,
Alabama A&M and IU Indy in that event. Got picked up a pair of wins there. So.
yeah,
Uh,
good job for them. Their first two of the year. So
as far as Norfolk State, the only team we're really circling so far this next week, they are at Stony Brook on Sunday. If you're
yeah,
going to be watching some, and of course we got the Delaware State Delaware game also that we mentioned earlier. Those are probably the two
mhm,
games to circle involving this
yeah,
conference. You can circle Delaware State at Texas or South Carolina State at Xavier, but unless you're a fan of Texas or Xavier, you're probably not watching those games.
yeah,
Uh, and if you are watching those games, that's big trouble for those two teams. That's
yeah.
all I gotta
Or
say.
watching these games, you're beyond help. Okay, here we go.
Go
Wow.
ahead.
So when you talk about bubble crashers, when you talk about getting inside the bubble, I think Drake has outperformed some of the teams that are currently in the top 25. Now, the big asterisk to that is not everybody in the top 25 has tested themselves. Bradley also very good, but oh my God, look at this. Look at that. Just Vanderbilt, who you didn't think would be good, but I believe that's Vandy's only loss. Miami, Florida Atlantic, all the way from home. This is a team that's just really done well. I think their next three games they should win, and then if they go to K State and get that one,
And I don't know if this is a very good
this is a team
K-State.
that's going to start to get close.
This is not a very good K-State team this year. I mean, they're still a Big
Yeah,
12 team, but I think this is winnable. I mean, I think any losses that we see from this Drake team at the moment are going to be an upset loss the rest of the season.
yeah.
Look at the rest
What
of the
is so
schedule here.
incredible about this? It isn't that they're having a 6-0 year and they're performing the way they are. It's that their roster and coaching staff were completely overhauled, and they didn't even get D1 transfers in most cases. They were lower division players that came in, and nobody, and I don't even think Drake fans were expecting this. I sure as hell wasn't. I mean, we talk about Columbia, a great story. Is Drake the biggest surprise in all of college basketball this year, considering they don't even have guys that were playing D1 a year ago?
I would say the biggest surprise in all of college basketball, and under the radar, absolutely is Drake. Number two, I'd say UConn eighth place again.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
That's but Bradley also off to a very nice start this season.
Yeah,
You know, only the loss at Washington State. They've looked the second best, I think, after Drake in this conference so far.
yeah. Uh, but wow, I'm on the Drake bandwagon, and last year's Drake team had a nice win against Gonzaga, I think.
One other team want to throw out there, Belmont. I know they did lose a game to Loyola Marymount the other day, and they lost a game to a very good Furman team.
Mhm.
I just, I think there might be something here. They look really
Oh,
good
I
in the
think
win over
so.
Tulane. They won that game at Lipscomb, which was a great game, in the Battle of the Boulevard there.
Hmm.
Keep an eye on this Belmont team this year.
Yeah, I think once they get in the conference play, they're going to be a factor. I think Murray might be. I can't really point to anything other than a feeling that they're going to be good. In Northern Iowa, a team
Uh,
that
uh,
I'm
you know,
always big on is not good.
uh, Murray lost the past week at home to Utah Valley. I'm not really with you on Murray State, but I could be
Mhm.
wrong. We'll see. But I think Northern Iowa could bounce back, but I just think Northern Iowa has been disappointing for multiple years in a row this
Yes.
so far. It's hard for me to pick in their favor until they really prove out. Um,
Yeah.
they are going to be playing North Texas, then either Utah State or St. Bonaventure, by the way, in their event that starts
Probably lose both of
today.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as Drake goes this week, their games are hosting Georgia Southern and at Valpo, and some more early conference play here. Uh, Northeast Conference. With all that red on the screen for teams that are ineligible for postseason play, and all the red on the right there for all the losses. The best week this week went to Long Island, who went for a bit of a road win at Charlotte, I guess. But
Mhm.
it's a, it's
Yeah. And
it's non-conference play in the Northeast Conference, Greg. That's about all I can
right.
say.
We love this conference once it gets in. I can't wait for Chicago State to finally win a conference game.
Been years since they've done one.
Years and years and years. Central Connecticut, I still think is the strongest team. The win against was it Providence is carrying
Uh,
more water
they,
than
they play well against Providence. They beat St. Joe's.
they beat St. Joe's. Okay, yeah, they play barely beat Providence and then beat St. Joe's. So I think that they've looked the best in that once conference play starts. But again, you're just sort of waiting. We're just sort of getting through all of the preseason fodder before we get to the conference play.
If you are looking for a good under the radar game to watch, though, tune in Sunday to
Yeah,
this Lowell Central Connecticut game. I think this
that
could be
is
a really
important.
good one, actually. And I'm
Yeah,
not joking about it.
no, me neither.
These are the types of games that we actually enjoy watching, as
Yes,
opposed to, I don't know exactly, Griggs, whether or not we're turning into Penn State Shenango at St. Francis. That
I'm
might be
not
a little
gonna.
below my standards.
Yeah,
If we
you
had
and I
Zach
won't
here,
want
if
to.
we had Zach here, he'd be tuning into that one. But
Yes.
uh, over in the OVC, this conference that you and I were discussing off of the air before we even started, just because of how disappointing this league is, and I think it's a
Yes.
conference that's on its way to Dayton in the first four, whoever wins it. It's just
It's
several teams
so
we expected to show up this season, like Little Rock, Moorhead, really have disappointed, and I don't even know who's any good here.
yeah, Edwardsville is probably the team that's performed the best. At least they have the best paper.
Well,
They've
no,
won,
I'll strike that. I think maybe Southern Indiana's performing the best, but they're not even eligible for the
but
postseason.
they're not even eligible.
But go ahead. Yeah, Edwardsville, yes, has played fairly well.
Yeah, Little Rock has just not looked. I mean, I thought it was just going to be Little Rock running away from everybody and then, you know, being in the 13, 14 seeded range. But so far, it's just one of those situations to where, like, it's looking at the 15, 16 line and probably even Dayton. Even of all the conferences we've talked about so far, minus maybe the MEAC and the NEC, but even the NEC, you could point to Central Connecticut and say, well, they've done something that warrants being inside of the first four.
Yeah, when you look at this conference, Southern Indiana beat Indiana State, who is not the same Indiana State team that was around last year, by the way.
Right,
Uh,
yeah.
Western Illinois, give them a bit of a shout out. They were a bit of a surprise last year that nobody expected much out of them, and they played really well in their first year in the OVC last year. Road win at South Alabama this past week by a
Yeah.
point. Uh, Wouldn't be shocked if they made a little noise again.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. The Leathernecks, well coached, really hustle.
Edwardsville team, which also they'll be hosting North Florida here coming up on Friday. That's their only game in the next week.
Yeah, that might be the only like that's actually a really decent under the radar team. We talked about North Florida earlier. That's the only game really at all that's jumping out at me. We've got East West. We have an East West sighting. East West at Lindenwood.
Eastwood West at Lindenwood. We got Eastern Illinois. Didn't they almost beat somebody?
They were with Indiana for a minute, but no.
Yeah, maybe. No, oh, they took Northwestern to overtime. That's
Oh,
right.
that's
I knew
yeah.
they had a really good game earlier this year.
Mhm.
Eastern Illinois, they're going to be at Butler, so if they could play the way they played against Northwestern, they could be in that game also. But
Yeah,
I think that was a fluke game there.
yeah, I kind of think so.
Uh, Over in the Patriot League, Griggs, where this is a conference that has made zero noise non-conference. I mean,
Zero.
Colgate did pick up the win yesterday at UNC Wilmington by double digits, so that at least shows maybe Colgate started to turn things, getting ready get towards conference play in a few weeks here.
Yeah, and another conference that appears to be Dayton bound. I mean, we love this league. It's so great once they get in the conference play, but
I won't say it's Dayton bound because if it happens, what happens every year, and Colgate runs away with this league and then wins the conference tournament also, that's probably enough to get
yeah, if they
a
do the
team like
double,
them.
especially
Uh,
if they run the table, like um,
Well, let's see. I mean, what they've got not left non-conference, other than, I mean, they got a road trip to Kentucky, forget that, but they've got
yeah,
Vermont at home in a very interesting game coming up here in the middle of December. Uh,
Iona they should win that one. So
Iona, and then conference play. So,
yeah,
Colgate has been the team in this league for years now, so we'll see if I can keep up. They did lose that game on Friday night, though, to Harvard, uh,
yeah, which
which
is
is
not
which is
good
why
fun.
which is why Colgate. I'm not ready to buy it on Colgate. Winning last night at Wilmington, though, did show me that there was a little bit of life here still.
Mhm.
Griggs, how about this on Sunday? American hosting Notre Dame.
Hosting Notre Dame, good for the Irish for going there. And I guess Notre Dame, oh, maybe it's just their medical school, Indy.
Notre Dame MD, yes, Notre Dame's medical team. It's their
Yeah,
trainers and their
yeah.
assistants and their doctor,
Going
their
to
team
America.
doctor.
Very, very unique type of game we've got there.
Let's move on. What have we got? A little SoCon action here, and we got
Yes.
the real good story here. This Furman team continuing to pick up wins, sitting now at 7-0 after beating Charleston Southern and Seattle so far this week.
Yeah. And probably the best looking team in the conference so far. I still think that there's a lot of teams in this league with the potential of being good. Buckyball, while they're not what they were a year ago, are still really competitive and have played really well. Chattanooga, after losing their first three, have won their last four. We said that we thought they would go on a run, and they're starting to. Um,
East
so a
Tennessee
couple,
State goes to Charlotte last night and picks up a 20-point win.
yeah,
I'm not writing off this East Tennessee State team at all this season.
yeah, and the Citadel and VMI already with D1 wins.
Congratulations. Western Carolina does not have one.
Yeah,
So
you don't.
they're
Yeah,
not the last team with, neither one of them is the last team with a D1 win in this league. This week, Furman's games are, Griggs, they got an easy one Saturday at Kansas and then a tough road
yeah.
trip to Florida Gulf. Maybe
Oh,
it's the reverse
so
of
I,
that.
I think, man, it's tough to go on the road and win. I think they're going to have trouble winning both of those, but they may be able to get one of them.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if Furman somehow does something on Saturday, I don't think we'll be discussing them in the Under the Radar show next week because they'll be
Right.
the rankings come Monday. That's
Yes.
yeah, they're a bit over their head in that game. No matter how much we like this Furman team, Samford's going to be hosting West Georgia and at South Carolina State. A slightly easier week for
Yeah,
Buckyball.
they can win both of those. I think they will.
Lipscomb at Chattanooga Tuesday night. Circle that game as well. That should be a really good one. And
Mhm.
Greensboro's going to be hosting that High Point team we discussed earlier here on Tuesday as well. So some
Yeah.
very interesting games coming up. Uh, Over in the Southland Conference, and the definitely going to be a one bid league Southland Conference. Quick is what I'm going to say at this point. I know we love this McNeese State team
We
coming in
do.
this season. Already three losses in their three toughest tests. They went 0 for 3.
Yeah.
They got a Mississippi State game, but just that game alone will not be enough, even if they run the table at this point, I don't think.
Probably not. I don't think they're going to beat Mississippi State. I do think that they might win all the games other than that one. I mean, this is an exceptionally good team in an otherwise exceptionally weak league. But I think that when the committee looks at them, what can you say other than that they beat up on a weak league? They North Texas was decent. If you're trying to make a case for them, it's hard to do. They got in the South Dakota State game. Had they just gotten that one and they were to beat Mississippi State as well, I think that that changes the complexion. But at the end of the day, you're looking at 28 wins where 27 of them are probably quad four.
If you want to look at somebody else in this league, I pulled up UTRGV in their first year in the Southland over there on that right. Remember a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
they took Wisconsin right to the wire.
Yeah.
They followed that up with they did pick up a win over Lemoyne, but but they don't really have any tests left at all non-conference. Their next biggest test will be their McNeese games coming up in conference play. So
Right.
uh,
And again, had they beaten Wisconsin, we'd be talking about them as a team that has a path if they can run the table.
New Orleans also picked up a road win against Tulane in a great game actually. That
Yeah.
Tulane Tulane were up by like 25 points on Tulane I think at one point. Tulane came storming all the way back, forced overtime, and then New Orleans regrouped and got it in overtime and got the game in OT. Uh, I don't know. Maybe New Orleans has a little life, or maybe it was just the rivalry game. I'm not that certain.
Yeah, I'm
This
not
team.
either. But
Upcoming schedule. Well, we've got some big ones, Griggs. Our Lady of the Lake is going to be at Lamar.
Our Lady of the their ticket's still available, if you can believe
Wow. Uh,
it.
Let's, McNeese hosted that Santa Clara team. We mentioned that one earlier. Over in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, a big shout out to both Alabama State and Bethune-Cookman, both with two D1 wins, which is a lot for this league at this point in the season for anybody to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, Alabama State is probably the team that's impressed me the most, and it's hard to analyze a league like this. It's probably more so than any of them where the out of conference schedules are predominantly road by games, 6, 8, or more. And it's the finance, not just their basketball, but much of their athletic department. And what you get is what you get every year. You don't really know who's good at all until you get in the conference play because everybody's just playing on the roads and getting their heads kicked in. But Alabama State with some good showings. They had a really good showing against LSU, I believe, in a losing effort. They've looked better than anyone else I've seen.
Now, I talk about a team that does not look good so far. They are one of the perennial powers here is Texas Southern. I couldn't believe that I was actually searching for the YouTube stream yesterday afternoon when I was looking for a game to watch my scoreboard said they were in a 3-point game with Texas A&M Kingsville late. They did win the game by 8 yesterday, but you've
Yeah,
got to blow out Texas A&M Kingsville at home when you're Texas Southern, uh,
yeah, you do.
and and that's not a good sign for this team heading into conference play in a few weeks here.
Yeah, Grambling also with a few good efforts, but still 0-5.
Alabama State this week is going to be at SMU and at Southern Miss. Both somewhat interesting games if this really is the best team in the conference.
Yeah, I would say so. The game at Southern Miss might be somewhat competitive, maybe a win. Probably not SMU.
Uh, uh, let's keep rolling right along here. And what do we got next? The Summit League?
I believe
Uh,
it is.
and the Summit League, which is the league that was so disappointing last year that, that we just really were shaking our heads. But, I think South Dakota State is redeeming this conference so far this season.
I
Picked up
think so too.
They
They
did. They
went
did that game against Boise by 1 point, and then they win their other two games. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that was down in the Bahamas. I forget the name of the event, but they had Boise on the ropes. And if they'd have, Boise did sweat a little bit, but I still think they're one of the better teams, if not the best team in the Mountain West. And had South Dakota State gotten that, and you're looking at them at 7-1 and wins against McNeese and Boise, you're starting to think, man, this is a team that's putting together a really good profile. No one else in the league really performed up to the level that they have. But the Jackrabbits have looked good. I've been impressed.
I'm with you. I'm looking forward to what they do this next week here. Their games coming up are uh, at Montana on Wednesday nights. The one that I'm
That's a
circling
big
here.
one.
That
Dakota
is,
West was, yeah.
and that is, you look at those games on Wednesday. That is the start of the Big Sky Summit League Challenge Series, which is men's and women's teams. I believe there's a total of, I think, 18 games here.
Yeah,
This, I think, the second batch is sometime in early January. And Griggs, we learned this last year that there's points award to each team, whether you win a home game versus a road game, and they add
yeah.
those all up. And if both leagues end up tied, they go to total points scored for leagues. And if that ends up a tie as well, the tiebreaker to determine the champion is an arm wrestling contest, the final four between the two league commissioners. And I'm not making this up. This is the truth.
No,
It's in the
no, that is
book.
in the contract, and we'll be there to cover it. We will dispatch Titel, Raga, everybody that we send to the Final Four to cover this arm wrestling
And
thing.
last year, it actually was close. It went to the second tiebreaker of the points of the total points scored to get decided. So who
Yeah,
knows this year? Maybe we get to
yeah.
that third tiebreaker layer. But let's go on to the Sun Belt Conference, where Arkansas State is sitting here at 4-1 overall. They only played
Yeah.
Lois Lane this week, I think it was. But
Yes, it ain't where it seems like there's more games than you can keep up with. It's the busiest week or two of the year, I guess. Arkansas State not busy at all. I almost forgot about them, not because I don't think they're good. I think they're very good, but they haven't played other
I'll
than
tell you.
Lois Lane.
Lois Lane. I did think that Texas State had a very good week though, with wins over Princeton and Ohio in their event.
Yeah, Texas State, and then they've had some good showings in some losing efforts too against some high caliber competition. Um,
That was against a 5 point loss at TCU. That was
yes.
the game I think you're thinking about there. Yep,
Right. And so they're a team to keep an eye on too. But I really like this Arkansas State team.
I'm with you on that. Maybe we'll get them on the court this week. Let's take a quick look. They actually are playing on Friday here in their event. They got Indiana
And
State, Rice, and Hofstra the next 3 days.
yeah,
That Hofstra game on Sunday kind of worth circling, I think.
yeah, it is. Rice has shown some signs of life. I want to say that they played Florida State pretty tough, but I still think Arkansas should win all three of those. But that Hofstra game is interesting.
As far as, let's say, that Texas State team we mentioned, their games are at Texas Southern and home against Arlington Baptist. That's
Yeah, and good for them for going to Texas Southern. It's odd that a SWAC team gets to host a non-D or a non-conference D1 opponent. So
yeah. Uh, Last of our regular conferences is the Western Athletic Conference, where uh, you know Grand Canyon technically had a 2-0 week, got the win over
yeah,
Stanford, but
you
still
got the
with
win
two
over
losses on the
Stanford.
season. Yeah.
Stanford's first loss. Is Grand Canyon going to have enough on that pro? I mean, this is going to be a question we ask every week, I think,
And
unless they go into the tank.
the big question is going to be, how bad is that UC Davis loss going to drag them down all season? Uh,
Yeah, and
Especially
when
when
you
you say,
have
and you've got to beat Georgia, and you've got to beat Louisiana Tech coming up here still, and St.
yeah,
Louis.
yeah, at Louisiana Tech, that would be a really good win for them. Um, I just don't know. Like, it is a loss to UC Davis, someone that's, while good, not going to be anywhere near the bubble. Is there going to be enough to offset that when chances are they won't have beaten anyone solidly in the field?
Well, yeah. Hey, if they beat Georgia, actually, because we were talking Monday night about that, this Georgia
Yeah.
team has really been
Oh, I
impressive
forgot
for
they do
us.
have a game against Georgia. Yeah,
Yeah,
Georgia is good, and as is a lot of Tech. So a big, big week for the Lobes.
yeah. That might be the game they've got to pick up to make up for the UC Davis
Hmm.
loss there. Uh, don't know that there's much else we could talk about in this league. I don't think anybody else really did much to impress me at
Yeah,
all here. Southern Utah wins at San Diego and beats Idaho. I think it's a decent week for them.
yeah.
But uh, upcoming this week, at least, I'll take a look at that Southern Utah team I just mentioned. They're hosting Bakersfield and Park of Arizona.
No,
Uh,
they had Parks in Arizona.
uh, and and Grand Canyon's hosting that Hawaii team. That interesting,
Yeah.
that game Tuesday night, really a must win for them. That completes all our regular conferences, Griggs. How about take a look at some of our mythical leagues, though? Uh,
Okay, yes, this is
let's let's start off in the let's see, I'm in the wrong number here. Let's start off in the here we go in the Beehive Conference,
the Beehive.
where we are battling for the old
Yeah,
bucket.
we
Uh,
we want the bucket back. We want it back.
Congrats to Utah with a win over Utah Tech Friday night to be in first place in the league heading into heading ahead here, and but no conference games coming up this
No
week.
conference games. It'll start to get fired up over
So if
Christmas.
you think BYU Ole Miss, BYU Purdue maybe coming up in the next few days is important, BYU at Providence, they're not important. Those are
No,
not the
they're
games
not.
that matter for BYU.
Right. And the Beehive needs to play itself more, and we need the bucket back.
How about the Front Range Conference? No conference games yet. The Colorado and Colorado State, two big rivals, tied for the league lead
Yeah.
early here. Although, let's see here, the
Yeah. Hope it's a busy
upcoming
week.
games, no upcoming games in conference play either, though. So,
Yeah.
Colorado State's games against Washington and TCU maybe not important. Wyoming
Right.
at Utah State crosses between a pair of mythical conferences, but
Yeah.
not quite a
And
mythical conference game.
you might ask, why are these mythical conferences so important? Well, they get mythical bids
Yes, they do.
to the NCAA tournament. I mean,
The Back Range Conference. This is one of our newer ones that we made up ourselves. Arizona State off to the 1-0 start here. And we got a huge game coming up today, Griggs. Arizona State and New
that
Mexico.
that is a big one. That's big for this mythical conference. It's big for actual reasons. Both teams performing really well this year. It's late tonight, but it's worth staying up for.
Absolutely. Watch Arizona State, New Mexico. There is a trophy awarded this game, and then a trophy award tomorrow if whoever wins the event as well. So how
Yeah.
about that? How about the Top Range Conference way up north there? Wazoo is dominating the league so far.
Yeah, they
Uh,
are. Gonzaga. Sometimes when you play in a conference as bitter as one of these mythical conferences, you tend to overlook everybody else. I think that's what happened. It's just the top range rivalries wore Gonzaga down, and that's why they lost to West Virginia yesterday.
yeah. There's a Gonzaga gets to play Indiana later today, but that is not a top range game, so it doesn't even matter if they win it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Our latest conference. Oh, this is a good one, Griggs. It's the Conference of Champions.
Yes,
We have
this
teams
is a
in
little
more.
too
We have
mystical
teams that
for
are in
me.
three conferences, like Colorado here, actually. But that's
Yeah,
how big this conference is.
yeah. Oh,
Oregon and Cal out to the lead early in the Conference of Champions. Uh,
yeah.
Bill Walton would be proud of us here. Washington
Yeah,
at UCLA and Oregon USC this week here,
yeah.
and don't call them Big Ten games. They are Conference of Champion games.
Right. Do we want to announce? I know we were debating when to break this out about the Bill Walton Trophy, or are we going to wait to announce that?
Oh, I didn't know we had a trophy.
Oh, yeah. The winner of this gets a mythical Bill Walton Trophy along with a mythical bid to the NCAA tournament.
And that mythical trophy is mythical tie-dyed, by the way.
Yes, it is.
The Hoops HD under the radar top 10 list. These are the top 10 teams that you and I voted on. We start with some honorable mentions that did not quite make the top 10, Griggs, including Kennesaw State just missing, along with UC Santa
Yeah,
Barbara, Arkansas State, Longwood, McNeese, out of the top 10 for McNeese. I did not think I would see that this year.
yeah, I
And
didn't
College of
either.
Charleston.
Yeah,
Uh,
I didn't either.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Lopes, also way lower than we thought the
Way
Lopes would
down
be
the
this year.
list, but deservedly so, not just because of how they've played, but how a lot of the teams ahead of them have played.
At number 9, South Dakota State.
Yes,
We talked about
good
the
showing in
Jackrabbits.
their event. Real good showing in their event. How about Bradley getting up there? We talked about them. Like them in the Missouri Valley.
High Point in at
High
number
Point,
7. Very
yeah,
good team.
very good.
And Columbia coming in at number
Columbia,
6.
yeah, and I don't. That might be a token ranking, but they did win it. They are undefeated, and they did win at Villanova. They've done a lot.
They've done a run. They're number 12 in the SOR. We discussed that earlier.
Yeah, they
Uh,
are.
Furman at number 5. Real
Yeah,
good team
moving
here, I
right
think.
up. Real good team out of the SoCon.
Number 4, Louisiana Tech out of Conference
And
USA. We discussed them at the start of the show.
yeah, we're starting to get into the fringe bubble teams, possibly.
Drake at
Drake
number
only at
3. Love this
3,
team.
but yeah, but still really high, still really dangerous.
Liberty, the other
Yeah,
CUSA, 3 CUSA teams on the list here. One of them in honorable mention, then numbers 2 and
yeah,
4. So that's why this was our feature conference this week.
right.
Liberty off that win was at the
Yeah,
Paradise Jam, and number 1. It might be no surprise, but we'll drum roll it anyhow. The UC Irvine Anteaters,
Yes.
out there at the Western Slam today,
Out there
tomorrow,
at the
and
Western Slam with
Saturday.
Rocco. Yeah.
Uh, with Rocco. Rocco is broadcasting the games. He's doing the play-by-play, the color, the sideline reporting. He's
Yeah.
coaching both teams, and he's sweeping the
He's
floors.
driving the buses to and from the airport.
He's doing everything.
Yeah.
Let's pull this down here, Griggs. Any other final thoughts on today?
Basically just eat a lot of turkey, wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I know for some people it's great, for others it stinks. If it's great for you, I hope you enjoy it. If it stinks for whatever reason, it's too much stress, or you can't be with people you want to be with, I hope you get through it. And seriously, we'll be following the games on Twitter. Turn on your TV and tweet at us if you need if you need something to do or someone to talk to.
Yep,
We'll be around.
shout out to us at Hoops HD, at David G Puppet, at C Sherwood underscore 1973. Or, if you want to tweet to, some random people as well, feel free to tweet to whoever you want to tweet to. Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
X to them or whatever. You can also follow us on Blue Sky now if you're on there. We do have a Hoops HD Blue Sky
Oh, yeah,
account.
forget we're on Blue Sky. I'm neglecting my Blue Sky. Me and my 3 followers.
On behalf of David Griggs, I'm Chad Sherwood. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a safe and happy holiday, and we will talk to you again Monday night with our Hoops HD report.